Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I have the great pleasure to be joined by my friends Caden Sproul and Kyle Collier, both fellow producers at Sports Radio 810 WHB. And in this video, we're going to talk about what we learned from the Chiefs' ass-kicking of the Baltimore Ravens in Week 4. So, fellas, we watched the Chiefs absolutely dominate an AFC rival, and that's something that we haven't seen in a couple years now. So my biggest question for you is, what did you learn from this domination from the Chiefs on Sunday? And we'll start with Caden.
Well, I think first of all, I'll say I think there was a lot of positive takeaways from this week. I think there was a lot of good things you could take away. But what I learned the most is that I think we can trust that these young guys that we've invested in the draft can make the plays, in these big moments. When you look at, first I'll say Noah Williams. I think he's been the most impressive of them so far. He only played 20 snaps on Sunday, but so far he has the highest coverage grade and highest overall grade in the NFL amongst all DBs. I'm not a big guy in PFF grades, but I think that's pretty significant. I think Spags made a good comment that it's hard to assess a guy off his grades when you don't really know what his assignment is, and he's speaking to the PFF grades, but I think that it's still significant that he's, number one overall DB. I don't think that should be taken slightly. And then moving over to the offensive side, I'll say the left side of the offensive line. I think that Josh Simmons had another good start, and then Kingsley Suamataia, who had his most impressive performance, I think, of his young career. He didn't allow a pressure at all. That's the first time as well. So that's huge that we need Pat, to have that time to see the field and find Xavier Worthy. It was good to have him back. And then the last piece I'll say is Brashard Smith. Brashard Smith is finally, starting to see a significant role in this offense. Andy Reid was asked about that, and he said Matt Nagy is consistently every week trying to increase his role and get him more snaps. So I think that's a good sign for this offense, to have somebody as that kind of change of pace back to, catch out of the backfield. And he's very explosive too. I think you saw that on that play where he beat the defender to the sideline, and then he had that sideline awareness, to stay in bounds, and then he lowered his shoulder at the end too, which you love to see at the end of a run. So I think that these young guys are very impressive, and I'd love to see them get more and more involved as we continue on.
Yeah, Caden, I'm glad you brought that play up, because I think on that play, Brashard Smith broke more tackles than either of the other Chiefs running backs had all year. It feels that way, doesn't it? But yes, and you're actually right. And I do have the numbers on Brashard Smith snap count. Week 1, 13%. Week 2, 8%. Week 3, 10%. Last week, 25%. So clearly, the Chiefs are just getting more and more confident about using him. And let's say Week 7 rolls around, wouldn't you dream of, trips right with Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, and then you got Brashard Smith, who I think could be a receiving weapon out of the backfield. That's some juice. That's some real explosiveness that I like to see. But, what I learned was still an unfortunate thing. The Chiefs still cannot run the ball. Pacheco did average 5 yards a carry, but he only ran it 7 times. The leading rusher was Xavier Worthy, which is just – it tells you really just all you need to know. Patrick Mahomes was able to cook against that Baltimore Ravens defense. I think all 4 of his touchdown passes were within the red zone and with a clean pocket. So he really didn't have to run or scramble for his life. And in fact, he only ran the ball 4 times, only got 5 yards. But yes, it is still going to be a problem because you couldn't run it against the New York Giants, who entering that Week 3 game, the Giants were allowing 177 per game. Chiefs still couldn't run it on them. And then this decimated Baltimore Ravens defense, the running game still didn't look all that great. So I think that's going to be something worth monitoring as the trade deadline approaches. And that's what I learned.
Well, Kyle, you mentioned that Patrick Mahomes diced up that injured Ravens defense. I'm going to pull up this stat from Ted Nugent. The Chiefs had one of their best pass blocking games in a long time. Mahomes had the lowest pressure rate, 18.8%, in a game in which he averaged more than 2.5 seconds of time to throw since 2021. So he had that time back in the pocket, and it made a big difference. And you saw him connect downfield with different receivers, and I think it kind of, brings both of your points that, with the left side of the line being revamped and you're starting to see these guys get better as the season goes on, that's going to allow Mahomes to have more time in the pocket. He's finally starting to trust that pocket, and it's resulting in the offense flourishing. And so I do not think it's a coincidence that in a game where Kingsley Suamataia didn't allow a pressure and Josh Simmons is getting out in space and blocking for Xavier Worthy and holding his own against, professional football players, it's nothing crazy to say that, Mahomes is finally starting to trust his line, and the offense is benefiting from that.
Yeah, and we saw him, he kind of stayed in the pocket a little bit more this week too, which was another thing that I noticed. The first couple of weeks we saw him bail a lot and kind of just, not really take that look downfield and kind of just try to go get it on his own. And he didn't do that a lot this past week, and that was a very positive sign. And, I mean, as you mentioned, Kyle, it was a very decimated, Ravens defense. They were without Matabike, which was very noteworthy when you're considering the run game still struggled. He's one of the top D tackles in the league, and they were without him. So kind of worried in that aspect. But, yeah, it was good to see Pat kind of trust that pocket for sure.
Yeah, and one of the telltale signs that Pat doesn't trust his pocket is the amount of times he takes off running. And we saw that a ton through the first 3 weeks. And, yeah, Caden, you're absolutely right. He had time to throw, and Darcy, you're right too. He trusts the pocket. So no need to put himself in harm's way when he can just sit back there and deal.
Well, I'll tell you what, another thing that I learned that I probably should have known going into the game, I didn't think that Xavier Worthy was going to have the impact on the offense that he did right away. I thought they'd try to ease him back in, the old Andy Reid way of just getting a player back, caught up to speed. They threw him out there and said, hey, go lead us. And he was fantastic in this game against Baltimore. There's a clip going around where he absolutely cooks the Ravens defensive back, Awuzie. That's the kind of stuff that a number one wide receiver does. And he continues to get better, building off of last year, and you're going to get Rashee Rice back. And I think I was the most surprised that, one player that we all thought was important, but maybe not as important as he actually is, have that type of impact on this game.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things I talked about last week on Night Shift was that, right now, without Xavier Worthy at least, we just didn't have the man beaters. It's going to come to a point in the game where it's going to be mano y mano, and we just simply did not have the guys to beat man coverage, or at least top, corners. You can't have Hollywood facing the cornerback one of the opposing team, and that's the situation we were put in a lot until X came back. So, I think the Chiefs did a good job of keeping Xavier Worthy's health under wraps. I don't think anybody thought that he would play as much as he did or be involved as he did, but he was very much a part of this offense.
Yeah, and the big question people were asking was, how much can Xavier Worthy exactly fix what's going on with the offense? And yeah, Caden, you laid it all out. It's clear that Andy Reid was not able to access those last couple pages in the playbook with the receivers and the weapons that he had. Xavier Worthy's just a difference maker. He's got more routes in his route tree. He's got more tools in his bag. And what I also loved seeing was, did you notice how many every time he got the ball, he hit the ground. He was taking zero contact, which I think is Tyler Lockett kind of made that famous in Seattle. And for a guy like him with his size, 170 pounds soaking wet, that's a brilliant thing to do. You can't avoid getting hit by your own guy, but a guy like him avoiding contact, that's just going to be good for the team in the long term.
I loved watching him get out of bounds. We all know that X is tough, but I'd rather have a cautious Xavier Worthy playing every single game than a guy that wants to be tough and just gets leveled by some guys trying to make a name for themselves in the NFL. So I like the awareness to get out of bounds and not take unnecessary hits, but I also want to talk more about the Chiefs' offense and where they rank after this week, because I think obviously, after a game where you put up 37 points, your offensive numbers are going to get skewed more in a positive direction. But we'll get into some of those offensive numbers right after this ad break. This video is sponsored by my friends over at DM Injury Law. Injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation, but time is critical. Rely on the experienced personal injury attorneys at DM Law, Kansas City and Missouri's top injury law firm. DM Law is a full-service personal injury practice supported by a large team of investigators, case managers, medical records specialists, and more. And best of all, you don't pay unless they win. DM Law operates on a contingency fee basis, meaning no fees unless they win your case. And they also provide free consultations. So if you've been injured, don't wait. You can contact DM Law today for a free consultation and learn how they can help you pursue the compensation you deserve. Let them handle the fight while you focus on healing. Hurt in a car wreck? Call Mike. Remember, Mike's got this. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisement. Thanks to DM Injury Law for sponsoring this video. The Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway is the place to be. With over 1,500 slot machines, 35 table games, 4 restaurants, and an ESPN Bet sportsbook, there are plenty of ways to find your fun. For more chances to win, follow their Facebook, Instagram, and X. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Huge thanks to the sponsors that have supported this channel all football season long. Now, I want to pull up this tweet from Price Carter of Arrowhead Addict, and he put out the offensive rankings through 3 weeks. The Chiefs are 15th in points, 17th in yards, 18th in yards per play, 3rd in success rate, 16th in yards per pass attempt, 7th in offensive DVOA, 10th in passing DVOA, 20th in rushing DVOA, 5th in EPA per play, 9th in EPA/DB, and then 3rd in EPA per rush. So I think that the offense after that game statistically is trending in a much better direction than it was the first, couple weeks of the season, and it's only going to get better when you add Rashee Rice back. But what do you guys think about some of these offensive numbers after this game?
Yeah, I'd say that the rushing DVOA sounds about on par, with the success that we've had in that
20th,
that department.
yeah.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Honestly, I think that's kind of high, but
Yeah, I was going to say.
that sounds pretty high to me. But yeah, I think the offense has looked impressive. The second half of the Giants game, of course, and then all of last week, of course. But also, those numbers are going to be skewed a little bit compared to the offense that we have now. Obviously, X didn't play the first couple weeks, and then also moving forward, it's gonna you add Rashee into that as well. That's gonna boost those numbers up even more. So I think that's a very positive sign, and we've got a lot to look forward to. And what I think this offense can be really, really good. I think it can be one of the top 2 or 3 offenses in the league moving forward.
Well, Kyle, before you jump in, I want to explain what DVOA means. It's defense adjusted value over average. For the fans that are watching this that might not have known what that meant. So basically, the Chiefs ranked 20th in the NFL at adjusted value over average. So that kind of puts some perspective on the stat.
Yeah, and another thing I loved seeing against the Ravens was, number one, Xavier Worthy coming back. I mentioned this last week. I can't remember if it was on your channel, Darcy, or if it's on the night shift, but I brought up how Tyquan Thornton being the deep ball guy and Mahomes just routinely finding him, that's only going to help Mahomes' downfield accuracy. And then lo and behold, Worthy comes back. Mahomes was just throwing dimes out there. So the more repetition Mahomes has throwing it deep, it's going to unlock it even further. And another thing, the Chiefs were 4 for 4 on 4th downs. I feel like they're going for it on 4th down at a rate we haven't seen before. I'd have to really get down to the numbers of 2024 and 2023 to make any sort of statement there. But that's some aggressiveness that you love to see. We always complain about the Chiefs getting too cowardly or too cute with short yardage on 3rd and 1st downs. They were converting yesterday, and they really just took it to Baltimore. And they dominated the time of possession as well. So it was just so successful to see. And those ranks you listed off, Darcy, they're only going to get better.
Yeah. And Jesse Newell of The Athletic actually put this stat out a couple days ago. The Chiefs' offense has scored on 54% of its drives this year per True Media Sports. That's third best in the NFL behind the Colts and the Bills. So even though we've been complaining about the offensive execution the first couple weeks of the season, and I think it doesn't hurt that stat, the fact that they went 7 of 8, converting, drives into points against the Ravens. But I think you're seeing this offense start to emerge, and you're going to go up against some teams that are better defensively than the Baltimore Ravens. But what have we talked about for the last 2 years? The magic number's 25. If you can score 25 points, you're going to win the football game. And I think we all feel much better about the Chiefs' chances of scoring 25, every single week, or at least being more consistent at getting to that number.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit before the show. It's been so long since we've seen them really just put the pedal to the floor and really just, put it on a team. It felt like forever since, I don't even know the last time we really just had an onslaught like that. I mean, by the fourth quarter, it was over. Everybody knew, obviously because Lamar was, he sat for the fourth, but everybody kind of knew that the game wasn't in doubt. Kyle, I'm glad you brought up Tyquan Thornton as well, because we did see his snaps, dip a little bit compared to the first 3 weeks. But I think he's still a very important piece of this offense, and I think he should be at least. Obviously, we saw him catch that touchdown pass, but I'd like to see him kind of expand his route tree a little bit. Obviously, over the first few weeks, we really only saw him run the deep routes. But now that we have Xavier back, he can run those deep routes, and then Tyquan can kind of work that intermediate area, I think. But like I said, I just want to see him expand on his route tree a little bit more and maybe get more opportunities.
Yeah, and with Thornton, I think he may be just, kind of best suited for that MVS Justin Watson role. Thornton is up near 200 yards, and I saw a tweet from Kent Swanson of Kansas City Sports Network. It took Justin Watson 9 games, not 8 or 9 games, to get up to Thornton's yardage total for already this year. So, yeah, Thornton should remain a part of it, and I keep going back to this, but Seth Kaiser, the chief in the North newsletter, Seth Kaiser has just described Thornton, if he can be a guy who can do one good thing a game for the offense. You saw it. He had 1 catch against Baltimore. It was a touchdown. And then you obviously saw it against the Giants, just being a threat downfield, and eventually that paid off. But yeah, if that guy's your number 3 or number 4, I feel like you're sitting pretty good,
When if you have 2 guys that can stretch the field, I mean, defenses are going to say, hey, let's not let Xavier Worthy beat us, but then Tyquan Thornton, who's running similar routes, is going to be open downfield. So I think that the Chiefs have, more guys getting healthy, getting back into the fold on this offense, and it's no surprise that they put up the most points that they've put up in years against the Baltimore Ravens when they finally start to get some of these pieces back into the offense. So, fellas, I think that we learned after this game that the Chiefs' offense is at least on a track to being, what we thought that they could be in the preseason, but, that's a very encouraging sign. So, my final question for both of you is, where can the people find your content? And we'll start with Kyle.
Yeah, and real quick, I think the last time the Chiefs' offense did this was against the Chicago Bears, week 3, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. That's what it was. It was a 41-10 blowout. I'm pretty sure that's the last time we've seen that. Yeah. But anyways, you can find me on Twitter at KyleCollier_810, and then listen to me on Sports Radio 810 on the night shift with Darcy and Caden. And I produce the program with Serem Petro, weekdays 2 to 6.
Yeah, you can listen to me on Sports Radio 810 with Michael and Kyle on the night shift, Wednesdays from 9 to 10, and then the Take KC with Andy Sweeney right before that from 7 to 9 as well.
And guys, all that stuff will be linked in the description of this video. Check out the night shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB, Wednesdays from 9 to 10. Hit that like button on this video. Subscribe for more daily Chiefs content. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Chiefs.